Do you and your husband fight a lot? Well, chances are your sex life is more interesting than a couple who never argues. Sex researcher and psychologist Dr. C.A. Tripp is our guest this morning, and he believes that we can all put that kind of friction to work for us and have a better love life. We do welcome you to People Are Talking this morning.
Thank you.
Interesting philosophy there. Are you saying that a loving, compatible marriage means a boring sex life?
Not necessarily. It is a bit dangerous, though, because while everybody likes affection and love and closeness and all these kinds of things, it does tend to be true that the compatibility in the living room is inversely proportional to the sexual voltage in the bedroom.
On what do you base that?
This is established on many different levels. In the first place, in nature, there are no examples of any animal, for instance, where sex is a smooth and compatible business from beginning to end. It's usually full of a good deal of violence, a good deal of active friction, strain, and so on. By the way, it doesn't necessarily follow that a person or couple has to fight in order to maintain compatibility. That isn't the idea. The idea is that some kind of distance is necessary in order to facilitate the relationship. This distance is built into any kind of love relationship, of course, in a high romance phase, but that's when the partners don't really know each other. As you get to know a partner and to perhaps marry them, and you get closer and closer, you run into troubles with fatigue and overcompatibility.
Headaches.
Headaches.
I say this is very interesting because everything that I'm sure our viewers have read and everything that a number of people have been exposed to lately, the magazines, the books, all say you should be best friends with your husband, you should be able to talk to him, you should be really very compatible, and that makes for a good marriage. And now you're saying no deal.
You're so right. That's exactly what the books have said for years. In fact, they even go a step further than you went, and they say, oh, you're having a little trouble in your marriage and things are slowing down. Well, that's a breakdown in communications. What you need is more communication.
Have we heard that word?
When in fact, you need perhaps less.
You say that couples can over-communicate?
Oh, of course. Let me stop in just a moment and prove that point.
Sure.
In Masters and Johnson's new book, Chapter 9, by the way, they have a wonderful chapter on what people do in fantasy. And it turns out that married couples in fantasy constantly bring in all sorts of stress. For instance, they, in fantasy, change the partner they're with. They go in for forced sex, bondage and discipline. They imagine that they're being forced into having sex or that they're forcing somebody else. Incidentally, a very interesting thing they found is that
You're not going to drop it there, are you?
males often use rape fantasies, for example, and a little more frequently than that they imagine they're doing the raping, they imagine they're being raped. Raped in the sense of a gang of women has them tied to the bedpost and are forcing them to have sex, or some such
Now, who are the guys that tell you these stories, Doctor?
These are the people that Masters and Johnson
Chapter 9, was it?
Chapter 9, page 179 through
79. So, if I may, what are you trying to tell us?
One of the things that I'm trying to say is that in a close relationship, you do run a risk with over-closeness, especially over-familiarity and over-friendliness. That doesn't mean you have to have friction in there. It means you have to have distance. If you were lovers, for instance, who were cross-racial, or you were cross-religion, or you had a clack on the outside who disapproved of the relationship, that would tend to make it very loving and close. But don't think that you can have closeness without some kind of symbolic distance.
Will you tell us then how we go about reestablishing this distance?
People have hundreds of ways of doing that. The ones that I find very amusing are the ones that are a little bit humorous, where one of the partners might say, oh, the next time I marry, it's going to be somebody who brings me breakfast in bed, or it can be a joke. But since the unconscious has no sense of humor, it notes the fact that you're paying attention to the possibility that there might be another partner, or people who have separate lives, like you do, for instance, where you are in television, or you would be separated from the person that you were closely bound to. You have individual lives. That allows you to come back together, perhaps each day, with a kind of renewed contact.
You mean, in general, people who have different jobs, like a husband and wife who go to different jobs, not necessarily just television, but anybody, right?
Anybody who has, where there's separate spheres that the people live in.
Well, let's talk about sex for just a minute then. Do you think that we as married people expect too much from our sex life in marriage, and that is a source of too many problems?
I don't know. It would be easy to say yes to that. I don't know if one expects too much or too little. One thing is sure, high romance has a maximum life of a year or two. That's a maximum life. Mean life would be probably half a year.
What do you mean by high romance? In love, bells,
yes.
tingles? Okay.
Means that it ain't what it used to be.
Why do you assume that it was ever better?
I don't know.
High romance is really something
not a bad question.
that one can't expect to maintain.
Really?
Of course, many people would say that's good news, because who wants high voltage all the time and being careful and picking all those flowers and being on your best behavior? It's awfully good in fantasy. It gets a little tiresome in reality. This is why most of our divorces, for example, are within the first year, because it's within that first year that the, as you put it so nicely, the bells quit ringing.
Someone else put it better. They said, the thrill is gone.
And
that was a song. Remember that? The thrill is gone?
I was going to write the song. Somebody already did.
And one of the things that kills that thrill, of course, is overexposure and overcloseness.
I must ask this question, because I can hear all through the city of Baltimore there are these women who are screaming, we don't have compatibility in the living room nor in the bedroom. So just because you're not that compatible in the living room does not necessarily mean you're going to have a great sex life. I'm sure that there are women who are not good friends with their husbands, and are not good just in general terms, and are not good friends with their husbands in bed either. Isn't that true?
It may be true, but let me say that would certainly be the requisite for candidates for divorce. If you're not having fun in either room, then surely you ought to be out on the street.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. There's no
Remarket yourself in some kind
See you later. So, all right, Doc, let me ask you this. And the Dr. Tripp says that his friends call him Tripp. I asked him what the CA stood for, because once in a while we like to say, hello, Charlie, or something. They just call you Tripp.
Just Tripp.
All right, Tripp. How do we put the old zip back in, Tripp? Either in the living room or in the bedroom. How do we get that?
I hate for you to be so light and flip about it, because, you know, these are issues on which people...
well, you just made us smile a second ago.
People are very serious, and it's the way they...
We are serious, too. Believe us, we are serious about this, yeah.
Well, I admit it has a serious side.
Smiling again, you see?
Oh, well, that's because I'm so charming. That has nothing to do with it.
All right, now go ahead.
No, but it is a matter of some seriousness and some concern that people frequently are given the wrong advice about how to maintain relationships that are important to them. And it's very good to know that there's some kind of optimal distance on which partners operate. And too much closeness, which we all get during sexual contacts, is a violation of this, and you need to have re-established distance. I often point out to people that we have so much instruction while growing up about all the cautions we should use. Be careful who you get into bed with, how you get into bed, when you get into bed. None of that matters. It's how you get out that counts. How you reestablish the distance that you violated after close contact. This will affect whether your partner will, for instance, want to see you again.
Well, we want to hear from some of our viewers today, and if you are getting along fine in the living room, but not so fine in the bedroom, we'd like to hear from you.